going to talk about primary keys. So until now, we actually did create the student table, but we didn't give it a primary key. What is a primary key? It ensures that the row is unique. So for example, in the student table, we know in all cases our student ID is going to be unique. There's no two students with the same ID. However, beforehand, we could have inserted, if we had ID 1, we could have inserted two people with the number 1, because even though we know in our heads a student ID is unique, there was nothing ensuring that. So here we have a primary key, and I'm setting the primary key to student ID. So in this case, it will not allow duplicates. It will also require a value. It can't, if you don't have a value, it's null. There are cases we saw where you can insert rows into the table, and you don't need to have every single attribute filled out. You can specify which attributes you're filling out, but here in this case, a student ID can never be null if it is a primary key. So let's do it. I'm creating the table, and then I'm inserting our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and our Simpsons. Okay. Now, so here, if we look, let's look at our student table. It looks exactly the same, but we made it a primary key. You can even see it actually here in the structure. You can see student ID is underlined. It's a primary key. It does not allow null. And we'll see it doesn't allow duplicate values either. So let's try it. Now I want to go and I want to insert values 1 with, let's do Brad Pitt. Okay, so I want to insert this. Is it going to work? What do you think? No, duplicate entry 1 for key primary. It's a primary key. You're not allowed to have 1 because you already had 1. If I put 6, which doesn't exist, then it's going to go fine. And now there will be, Brad Pitt should be one of the students. But it didn't work when we tried it. It didn't work with 1 because that number was already in use. And this way we know it's a primary key and it has to be unique. Insert into student values. Now I'm going to do something different. Null. So previously, and we're not going to do Brad Pitt. We will do, who should we do? We will do, okay. So now I'm going to put someone else. Previously it would have worked. You can have a column null. We could have also just specified here the attributes that we are inserting and then only specified specifically the attributes you wanted. However, primary key can't be null. It must have a value. So let's hit go, and we can see column student ID cannot be null. So that is a little more about primary key. And for your homework, you should look at primary key and see which every table that you create should have a primary key. Primary key. It's possible that it won't only be, in this case we have student ID, but there are cases where it will be 2 attributes together that make up the primary key. Sometimes there's cases where it's not just 1 attribute, but the combination of attributes that make up a primary key. For example, a courses table. If you have courses, and in courses you can have a student taking more than 1 course. If a student takes more than 1 course, then a student ID is going to be in the table more than 1 time. That's not going to be unique. And therefore, sometimes you can have composite primary keys, which can consist of more than 1 attributes.